Hey, what's up, YouTube family? It's your favorite black guy from Nebraska. Yes, there's black people here in Nebraska. Today we're going to continue in the book called Nature Knows No Color Line. We're going to read the entire chapter. Chapter 8 is called Negro Ancestry in the French. So if you're busy, if you're at work, if you're just chilling, just pop your headphones in and just listen. There's also going to be some pictures that are going to show up on the screen. I'm going to read the whole chapter. This chapter is not that long. And I'm gonna try to make it quick, but also I'm not gonna rush. So you guys will be able to understand what I'm saying, because some of the words in this book, I'll be honest, it's hard to pronounce. So chapter 8, Negro Ancestry and the French. The Moors, as was seen, invaded France in the 18th century and remained there until the 12th, when they were absorbed into the population. 5 centuries later, in 1609, this stock was reinforced by the entry of about a million more, who came on the invitation of Henry IV on their final expulsion from Spain. They settled in Auvergne, it's spelled Auvergne, where their strain is still evident in the general population. There's a strong Negroid strain in the many Auvergnese, says John Gunther. Among those of Moorish stock were such noted figures as Bertrand du Guesclin, Charles Bernadotte, Napoleonic Marshal, and King of Sweden, Joachim Murat, Napoleon's brother-in-law and King of Naples, and Pierre Laval, twice Premier of France. Laval was an Auvergnat and rather Negroid in appearance. In addition to the Moors were the Negro slaves and Negroid Levantines, brought in by the Christians in the 13th century and earlier. Ethiopians, Moors, Turks, and Greeks furnished chiefly the crowd of slaves in the homes of the wealthy. Turks and Greeks, guys, not only black people, says Mathurus. Later, when modern Negro slavery started in Portugal about 1440, the number of Negro slaves as well as free Negroes increased in France. The principal slave ports were Bordeaux and Nantes. Mathurus says, dating from Henry IV, 1553 to 1610, the arrival of Negroes multiplied in France. They came in droves to fill the gaps left in the population by the wars of Louis XVI. He adds, the maritime ports are not the only places we find mention of them. We find also records of baptisms of Negroes born in Africa in the registers of parishes of the interior. The ship captains, ambassadors, and admirals brought them to France and used them for various purposes. In New Orleans, there was a college for these blacks, and a street was named in their honor. During the 17th century, there was numerous in Paris. Most of the female slaves were white. Check this out. Most of the female slaves were white, says Levi's. They were brought chiefly from the region of the Black Sea in southern Russia. Nantes and Bordeaux had many Negroes. In the Caveau de Saint Michael at Bordeaux, I saw the mummified bodies of 2 or 3. One of them, La Negress, for whom a small town was named after a black woman, La Negress, and has a railroad station with that name. In Toulouse and Selmy de Ascalar, a nobleman married Cassius, a Negro, whose descendants married into some of the leading families of the city. Mulatto descendants of Zenon, a Negro, still lived in the town of Bani Salor. Some are old men, others children. Most of them are whitish yellow, their Negro strain showing most in their hair, nose, and lips. Zenon, who came from Eldebarban, Africa, passed for rich and had many children by the white girls of the village. The Negroes are well received, especially in the military circles. Marshal Saxe, Prince Maurice of Saxony, 1696 to 1750, had a brigade of jet black Africans, commanded by Jean Hitton, a Negro, which served as his bodyguard. Mounted on white horses and colorfully uniformed, these blacks were one of the great sights of Paris and Versailles. They served with distinction in the Flanders War. Count d'Alva, French ambassador, had a bodyguard of 140 Negroes. Picturesquely dressed as his bodyguard, in 1644, when he went to Germany to help write the Peace of Munster, he took them with him, creating a sensation when they accompanied him into the cathedral to worship. Napoleon also had many Negroes, some of whom fought in Russia. They had such names as Black Pioneers and Royal Africans. The latter, a cavalry regiment, served in Italy under General Hugo, father of Victor Hugo, and helped capture Fra di Devolia. After Napoleon's conquest of Egypt, Negroes were brought in numbers to France and served under Marshal Kleber. Negro women were also imported from there at the same time for the brothers. Napoleon had at least 12 Negro and mulatto generals. One of the most renowned of his earlier officers was Joseph Dominique, an unmixed Negro called by Napoleon Hercules because of his size and strength. French Negroes rose to other high positions once Aben Ali was private physician to Charles VII. Another, Antoine de Nini, attended Louis IX. There is record of the generous fee. Louis XI, I apologize. There is record of the generous fee paid him by the king for having cured him. Still another physician, Francois Frenère de Pasquet, 1771 to 1833, was private physician to Ferdinand VII of Spain. When the latter was in exile in France, de Pasquet, born in France of part Haitian parentage, was also a professor of pathology, a regimental surgeon major, chief surgeon of the Paris police, and chief health officer of France. He compiled a medical dictionary also. Others became favorites of royalty and nobility. Aniaba, an ex-slave, was adopted by Louis the 14th, baptized into the Christian faith by the celebrated Bishop Basque, with the king in attendance, and given the royal surname. Marie Antoinette had a young Negro favorite whom she christened Hamilcar, after the father of Hannibal of Carthage, in a ceremony in the royal chapel of Versailles. Madame du Barry had a Negro favorite, Zamore, who was governor of her chateau, was so spoiled that Louis XV not only deferred to him, but was complacent in sharing du Barry's favors with him. A painting by Moreau Lejeune, Feet a Levincians, shows Zamore being fed candy by a grand dame. Zaga, another Negro, was one of the great impostors of history. Born of humble parents in East Africa, he convinced Catholic missionaries that he was the rightful heir to the throne of Ethiopia. On his father's death, he said he had been driven out by a usurper. The missionaries gave him letters to the Pope, and he arrived in Rome, calling himself Zaga Christ. Urban VIII installed him in a palace and later sent him to the great Cardinal Richelieu, who presented him to Louis, who lodged him in royal style. Jet black, handsome, fascinating, and dressed in costliest Oriental robes. He was a favorite with the ladies. He died in 1638 at the age of 28 and was buried beside the Prince of Portugal. Negro men and women mated with royalty. Robert de Epes, son of William III, married a Sudanese princess, Esmeria, who attained such fame with the shrine that a shrine was built to her, and she became a Black Madonna. Francois de Vendôme, Duc de Chartres, cousin of the king and commander-in-chief of the French army, left his wife and the beauties of the court for a Negro woman. Francis had a Negro mistress. Francis I had a Negro mistress. The first mistress of Louis XIV was a Negro woman in the household of his mother, Anne of Austria. Louis XV, according to police reports, had a Negro son. If this is so, his mother might have been Madame de St. Helen, a West Indian concubine of the king. Marie Therese, wife of Louis XIV, undoubtedly had a daughter by a Negro favorite, Nabo. Though neither she nor her husband, Henry II, show Negro strain, at least in their portraits. Alencon was so Negroid, so different in appearance from his royal parents that he was hidden as a child, like another royal duke. Alessandro de' Medici, of whose Negro ancestry we are certain, Queen Elizabeth of England was in love with Alencon and cried because she couldn't marry him. Marshal Junot of Napoleonic fame had a son, Othello, by a Negro girl of whom he was enamored. And Mimi de Solms of the court of Napoleon III was reported as being especially fond of Negro males. Louis Sebastian Mercier, 1740 to 1814, tells in his picture of Paris how Negro favorites were kissed and caressed by their noble mistresses. And Jacques Delacroix of the same period tells how they were pampered. When he cries, everybody runs to him. He said, "Happy child, thy father groans, perhaps under the under the blows of the whips. You are on the knees of beauty. Your hand rests upon a breast moved by pleasure. A soft caressing hand moves over the cheeks." When these Negroes grew up, they married white women, sometimes of good family. This explains, in part, the number of French families with Negroes in their coats of arms, named Moor, Negre, Nior, and the like. Empress Josephine, consort of Napoleon, might have had some Negroid blood. She was a West Indian, probably of the color of Lena Horne or Josephine Baker. Mimi de Rumessat, friend of the Empress, said her complexion was rather dark, but she hid it very skillfully with red and white paint, in the use of which she was an expert. Makeup. Napoleon himself is said to have had as one of his mistresses Fortuny Hamelin of Saint Dominique, Haiti, of evident Negro ancestry and with skin so dark, lips so thick, she was called the Black Belzie. Intelligent, witty, and wonderful dancer, a splendid horsewoman, and of exceptional personality, she was called La Belle Aide, the beautiful ugly woman. She was Napoleon's chief female confidant and was a figure of more than minor importance in the French Revolution. When Napoleon was leaving for St. Helena, he gave her 300,000 gold francs, an immense sum even now. Later, she was an intimate friend of Count de Chateaubriand, famous literary figure. Sophie Arnold, 1740 to 1802, French actress and one of the wittiest women in history, undoubtedly had a Negro strain. She was described in police reports at the time as having a skin extremement Nior, meaning very dark. Another great actress, Gabrielle Regin, had Negro features and is described by Bruno Springer as being of a blonde Negro type. One noted opera singer of our times is the daughter of a West Indian colored deputy. She sings, or used to sing, in the Paris Opera. The number of Negroes from time of Moors to Josephine Baker to have left some impress on French life is considerable. Jean-Louis, a Haitian Negro, was France's greatest swordsman and probably the world's also. His descendants by his white wife still live in Montpellier, France. Two Negroes of Napoleon III's time were Vries, the Black Doctor of Suriname, and Toku of Holland, called Le Prince Nior, the Black Prince. An escaped slave, he joined the French army and was decorated for valor in the Crimean War. Benjamin Constant, most noted painter of that time, although him the most perfectly proportioned man he had ever seen, Noel used him as the model for the statue of the gladiator in the city hall of Paris and constant as Muhammad II in the picture entry of Muhammad II in Constantinople. Crowds followed him on the streets. He was a favorite with women and had a number of children by him. I apologize for the picture, guys. If you turn your phone sideways, you'll be able to see the example that I have in front of you. Once again, I apologize. I can't turn the picture sideways. So this is the last couple of pages. Let me go ahead and get started. One African woman, Sat Ji, who was called Hideous, had a considerable number of white lovers. She is the famous Hottentot Venus, whose massive breasts, protruding buttocks, and elongated genital lips, a prehistoric Hottentot inheritance, were a sensation when she was exhibited in England and in France. And that picture was the slide. That slide was the one before this one of the woman. An American mulatto, Pascal B. Randolph, had considerable prestige in France also. A graduate in medicine and then foremost figure in occultism. He was a friend of Napoleon III and was welcomed at his court. Randolph was supreme master of the Rosicrucians of the world. The last two world wars brought a great number of Negroes to France, some of them from Algeria, Tunis, and Morocco light colored. Negro women are rather few in France, thus these blacks have mated with white ones. Negro regiments were and or are garrisoned in Verdun, Perpignan, Toulon, Marseilles, and other towns where there are almost no Negro women. I saw much of this race crossing between Africans and West Indians with French women during the years I spent in France. In short, Negroes have been living in France from prehistoric times and infused a great deal of their strain into the French people, even though it is today almost non-apparent. However, Negro strain may still be found sometimes where least expected. For instance, Colette Francis, foremost female author who was elected president of the Goncourt Academy in 1949, is the great-granddaughter of a Belgian mulatto, according to herself. Among the mixed marriages of the Second World War was that of Norman Ashton, American Negro War veteran. The Jeanine Bayard of Soucy-le-Château. The marriage, for some reason, was opposed, and the Catholic priest of the neighborhood refused to marry them. They appealed to the Pope, received his special permission, and were married before a large audience in the Cathedral of Aisne. One of the most remarkable cases of fascination of white women for black men I've ever seen or heard of occurred in Paris in 1928. At the trial of two Negro dancers who had robbed and murdered an aged woman for her money and government bonds. The two men were French West Indians, Guillaume La Fortune and Lionel Julien Gigolos, in a Montmartre cabaret, where their tall, athletic figures, clever dancing, and flashy clothes won them great popularity among a certain feminine element. From their crime, they got $200 in cash. When they tried to sell the bonds, they were caught. Women with whom they had danced flocked to the trial, some elderly and well-to-do, others young, pretty, fashionable. Some did not hesitate to make known where their sympathies lay. Two were especially conspicuous. One, a rich English woman of 50 to whom La Fortune had given dance lessons, got him one of the best lawyers, and during his stay in jail, showered on him, as one paper said, 1,000 sweets. She was a character witness. When she heard the verdict of death, she wept and was so overcome she had to be carried out. Yeah, but these dudes, they earned that death sentence. The other, French, young, elegant, beautiful, said one on the stand, "Neither will I believe him capable of such a crime. He is a perfect gentleman." Not really. During the year he spent in prison, she sent him money and expensive cigarettes. La Fortune asked his lawyer to get her husband, a rich chocolate manufacturer, to give permission to her to accept my fine dress suit and elegant pumps. When she heard it, she wept. My poor brown pet. My poor brown pet. Wow. Clement Vatel, columnist of the Paris Le Journal, said of this case, Montmartre, which, after becoming the center of attraction for the world, has become a colony founded by the sons of Ham among men, and especially among white women. It is impossible to count any longer the number of curious ones, the originals, and the seekers of sensation who are devoted to the Negro. The black snobbishness among white people is increasing in all walks of life, and thus it was that at the trial an honorable merchant came to witness in favor of her lover, Firmin Lafortin, today promised to the guillotine. One of 4 fellow journalists related the scene as follows. To the bar with them, firm step came a woman. Thin, tall, and supple, with finely chiseled features and still pretty. For she is no longer very young, with great black eyes, with 2 large pearls in her ears, false perhaps, very elegant in her tailored costume of blue with white blouse, a fur scarf over her left arm, and a coquettish hat over her black hair. She enters the box looking long and fixedly at the Negro and smiles to him. Sympathetically, she declares, never have I believed him capable of such a crime. But he did it. Then, fine, pretty, elegant, unabashed, folding with care her fur over her left arm, she left the room not without having looked longingly again at her ex-dancer, who followed her with his eyes intensely. Let us be just, there is courage in the act of this woman who comes before all the world without thinking of the scandal her act will cause to save her miserable gigolo. She at least does not hide the desire she has had for a handsome black. This up-to-date middle-class woman makes a public avowal and is not the least troubled by the severe look of men with reddened faces, angry white men. Evidently, she still loves the Negro who spun her around in the Montmartre cabinet, Carbets, to the sound of savage music, even an odor more noticeable than is the custom. She has guarded the souvenirs, the regret without doubt of all that. Such is the Madame Bovary, model 1929. That of Flaubert seems to us today of faded sentimentality, with his fine young man, his blonde Rudolph. Tell us now of a lively young woman who frolics with a robust Negro seller of cocaine, stealer of jewels, and stranger of old women. Negro seller of cocaine. Check that out. Evidently, the woman of this type who consorts with Negroes is the exception. But anyway, those white men who are trying to imitate Don Juan de Lauzun and the Marquis de Priola ought to take into still stronger account the charmer with the nut brown skin and the woolly hair. The Paris edition of London Daily Mail said, it seemed incredible that this elegant lady could have anything in common with the broad-shouldered, elaborately dressed Negro in the dock. The answer may be found in Montmartre Cabaret. He had been her dancing partner, and for him she had convinced the sudden, inexplicable sympathy which women seem sometimes to conceive for Negro dancers. It is a tale that has been often told since the end of the war, when the music of the American Negro was introduced into the dancing halls of Paris. Even the story of the murder to which she listened did not shake this woman's faith in the Negro. And to the judge's question, she calmly answered, I could never believe him capable of such a crime, even though he did do it. He was a perfect gentleman. Much color prejudice was brought into France by American troops in 1917, but it didn't change the French much. A survey made in various regions of France as to how Negroes will be accepted in hotels and other public places in 1928 showed this. In 1950, I saw a great number of Negroes in Paris than before, and with probably even less prejudice. There were more Negroes in Parliament, with one being president of the Senate. Whites and Negroes intermarried and danced together in the cafes. That is the end of that chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed the information. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to pronounce the words properly, but I think you guys get the overall gist of what I was trying to get. What I was saying, what this book is saying, what this chapter is saying. So everywhere you go, even in the European countries, from its origination up to now, the Negro has been present. So hope you guys enjoyed this chapter. Please comment, like, subscribe. If you're still here after 24 minutes, I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed the information. Like I said, please like, share, subscribe. And I'm going to bring more content to you guys in which I believe you would enjoy. All right, man. It's been great. It's your favorite black guy from Nebraska. I'm out. Peace.